So previously we had discussed that in the three stages, any kind of powerful nation was asserting its authority. The first one we discussed was by mercantilism or by trading rights. The second thing we saw coming up of colonization, that they went and they established the proper trading centers in those colonies. The third thing which we observed was imperialism, and in imperialism we had already discussed that these nations, they had taken over the politico administrative powers in that particular colonies. We had already discussed how imperialism spread to China. We had already discussed Japan's imperialism. Now let's very quickly see that how it spread to Southeast Asia. Now it is said that France was having a strong control over Indo-China, which includes the Laos, Vietnam and Cambodia. And the Britishers, they managed to occupy the Malaysia and Singapore. Now here UPSC in the mains 2017 had already asked a question from here regarding your decolonization process in Malaysia. We will discuss it towards the end of our lecture series. Okay, it is mentioned that Sri Lanka firstly was occupied by the Portuguese and then Dutch, and finally it passed to the British. British had introduced the rubber plantations in Sri Lanka. Is it clear? Now, in the Philippines area, it was basically a colony of the Spain. We had already discussed initially in the age of geographical discoveries that a line was passing, right? And half of the globe, the power was given to Portuguese, and other half it was given to the Spanish people, right? So what happens over here is that in the Philippines area, this part of the globe, we see coming up of the Spanish people. Another thing which we observe here is that how imperialism is spread in Africa, and you can say this as scramble of Africa into multiple parts. Okay, so most of all in Africa, the Western powers were more considered about the slaves or the slavery, specifically in the Gold Coast. Now this is the Gold Coast or the slave coast of Africa, right? So it is said that the colonial governments, they took much of the Africa's land for their own personal and commercial use, such as mining for the commercial farms. They were selective in choosing the land and took only the best and called it their own, right? European nations, they also began creating farms and the mining companies in Africa. They needed the people to work on them so that they could started using the African labor as the cheap labor. Mostly the people from here, they were taken as slaves. We have studied in American Revolution, and they were taken as planters, right, to the Caribbean islands, and they were subjected to very harsh treatments in the fields. Apart from that, it is said that the slave traders, they raided the village of Africans, okay, and the Spanish church saw that these black slaves, they could be converted into Christianity, right? Now there's a term which is said Middle Passage. It is basically describing the brutal manner through which these slaves were transported to America across the Atlantic Oceans, basically for sustaining as the plantation workers, right? They were stuffed into the ships beyond the carrying capacity, and it is said that with coming up of American Revolution and independence of America, we saw that slavery had vanished away. If you remember our class on American Revolution, we have discussed that how the northern states, okay, where in northern states we have seen that mostly migrated people were there in northern part of this America, right? And southern, we had seen the plantation or the slave. So we had also seen that the debate had been going on between the northern state and the southern state regarding the ending of slavery. But by this time and coming of Abraham Lincoln, we saw that officially slavery had been abolished. Is it clear? Now, what happens that all the major power they wanted to have a share in Africa, definitely human resource, mineral resource, right? Both of them were present. Now there was certain interest we see over here. First is that the Europeans, they had interest in Suez Canal. Now this question again, UPSC in its mains 2014 has already asked, though we will be discussing this PYQ in our last class of decolonization. What happens? There is a Moroccan crisis and European colonization of South Africa is noticed. Apart from that, we notice the crisis in the Congo. So what is this Berlin Conference over here? Now understand that all these European nations, they gather together in Berlin, it's a city in Germany, and they decide how to share Africa amongst themselves. How the scramble of Africa has to be done, and this was called as paper partition, right? First of all, let's see here. Congo. It is said that over here, the king of Belgium, he had claimed rights, okay, and he went there with his private army, and it is said that exploitation of resources took place over here. Specifically, copper was found in Congo. In the French Congo, again, it is said that over here there was a treaty and major parts were occupied by the French people, and they also occupied the Ivory Coast, the French Guiana. This is present, all this is present in this part of Africa. If you see it on the map, it is present on this part. Okay, and Senegal, it also came under Senegal, Mauritania and Niger. It also came under the French territory. What about Nigeria? It became the part of British people. And Gold Coast, Ghana, over here, Sierra Leone, all this became the part of British territory. In South Africa, initially it was occupied by Dutch, and they were also called as the Boers, but it was later again secured by the Britishers because they wanted to secure the sea routes to India, right? If you see on the map, this is Africa. Somewhere here you will see India. Wait, let me draw it. Right? If this is your Africa with all these nations, somewhere here you will see India. Now, if any trade had to happen from the Mediterranean, this place of South Africa had to be reserved, and from here only there was a trade route to India. Now, they wanted to secure the Cape of Good Hope over here. And this is Africa. This is India. Is it clear? Now what happens that the Boers, they owned large farms and plantations, and later they shifted to new states such as Orange Free States. Another part, we'll see Rhodesia. It is present Zimbabwe or Zambia. Here it is said that the profits were made from the gold mines. Apart from this, we also see that Boer wars, okay, were fought in which the Britishers had overthrew the Dutch from the Orange State and the South African Republic, and in order to secure the Cape of Good Hope, what happened? They established their suzerainty over